Rant time. I'm ranting. I'm upset. I'm pissed. Listen, Amazon has canceled The Wheel of Time. And I'm sitting here trying to figure out why on earth they would do this. And the general consensus online is that it was too woke. Here's the problem with that. The Wheel of Time, from its source material, was far more gynocentric than any other franchise they've touched. In fact, I would go as far as stating that every bit of modern audience editing they've done for the Wheel of Time was for the benefit of the books. And let me explain. The entire system and series that the series was built, that the entire book series that Amazon built this franchise from was written by Robert Jordan. In this series, there are literally a single monolithic power structure involving only women being able to utilize magic. And of course, there is an entire universe of interactions and single sex everything. There's certain things that men just are not permitted to do. It's extremely gynocentric. It was already tailor-made for the post-woke ideology of our modern viewers, and they couldn't stand it. They canceled it because when they tried to over-wokeify it did nothing. It changed nothing in the actual story. It remained as mostly true to the original source material with a few questionable castings. But beyond that, how do you start with the most perfect modern audience rewrite in the original material and screw it up so bad that you have to cancel it before you trim the fat in other places? I mean, this is the one franchise they could have pushed through for another 2 or 3 seasons without anybody giving them much of a pushback other than the fact that the writing sucks. I can't help that. You're going to have to do better writers. That's fine. Go get good writers, stick to the original source material. You get to do your message. You get to do your propaganda. You get to do everything you've been trying to do for the past 10 freaking years without anybody pushing back on you. But instead, what do? Oh, we can't break it. Everything's already race swapped and broken. So we're just going to cancel it and move on to something else that we're going to ruin and destroy. Some other franchise. It's going to be a series of Back to the Future with a black freaking Marty. I mean, I don't know how this is going to end, but it's
Marty.
Well, yeah, right. Well, there's no way to make money off the other end of this.
Marty Jefferson Jackson and Doc Kareem.
Doc Kareem Jabbar. I like that. That's pretty good. So how was that for a rant?
That was a first class rant right there, my friend. I don't know what we need us for or me for at any rate. So how if I had to pin you down, which Amazon show is worse? Wheel of Time, Rings of Power.
Rings of Power. Wheel of Time. You think the Wheel of Time is bad, but it is built off of the source material that is so vast, even in its individual chapters, that it would be impossible to make anything short of like a 10 series commitment just to get through the first book. It is.
Yeah, I don't have any familiarity with the source material. I don't think I had ever even heard of it before they made the Amazon show. So I'm coming at it from a position of ignorance. I think try to watch one episode and didn't get through the whole first episode, which coincidentally is the same experience I had with Rings of Power.
But with Rings of Power, they are corrupting a previous franchise, whereas Amazon with the Wheel of Time, the original source material was far more woke than what ended up rolling out of freaking Amazon. I was actually disappointed that they didn't go harder. And I'm
just glad we finally got the black hobbits that the world has been clamoring for so many decades now. Thank you, Jeff Bezos. Thank you, Amazon.
When I heard Amazon was taking on the Ring of Time, I giggled maniacally. In fact, I think I said it on this very program. They can wokeify as hard as they want to, and they will not outdo Robert Jordan in his first attempt.
Oh, and I guess in a bit of news in a similar vein, did you see the news about Doctor Who? I guess it's been canceled altogether now.
Oh wow, really? Well, there's a step up.
I guess just barely a year after Disney acquired it. That was all the time it took to drive the last nail into that coffin, apparently. And God, that might be the greatest wokeification of all in terms of taking a thing that a lot of people really like and have really liked for a long time and just tearing its guts out of every single thing that people used to like about it and just transmogrifying it into some ugly, hideous vehicle for the message.
The message. I would have to make the argument that Halo was a pretty good destruction. Halo source material was written by some of the greatest authors in sci-fi. And as a byproduct of that, the greater Halo universe is also written by some really, really good authors. And so when they went to make a series on Halo, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. They're going to ruin everything. And I was exactly right. The very first thing they do is show you John 117's face, which is something that has never occurred in any of the games or any of the novels. I mean, that's pretty much the end of that show right there, because that's part of the mystery. It's like Doom Guy. Nobody knows what Doom Guy looks like. He's just a killing machine running through hell. You don't need to know. That's
and
exactly
also that the news we reported last week, that the rumors are percolating out there that Disney might divest itself of one or the other of Marvel and Star Wars and try to salvage whichever one they decide is more salvageable. And it looks like that news isn't going away, and there are starting to be bad reports coming in from the new Avengers picture that they're making, the one with Robert Downey Jr., Dr. Doom.
All right, so Doctor, let's get into it, bro. This is a question. They should have got Johnny Depp to do it. I mean, I'm just saying, if you're going to spend,
that's not a bad one.
If you're going to spend Downey type money, you should do it so that it can at least go in line with the rest of the Marvelverse that is on the table. I'm sure there is a Marvelverse out there where Tony Stark became Doctor Doom, but the one we exist in, at least for the most part, Von Doom is a totally separate individual from Stark. And there's no room in Stark's life for him to have also been Von Doom when no one was looking.
And I'm not to mention, I mean, already, even before you make this picture, the multiverse thing has already made people stop caring so much about any of this shit, because I'm sorry, there just aren't any stakes in your narrative if you can pop over to some alternate universe and grab a replacement copy of whichever motherfucker just got killed. You can do that forever and ever and ever and ever. And what the hell does it matter if anybody dies at that point? When they started going down that multiverse road, I think the thing probably became unsalvageable at that point. Although that's not true. It was unsalvageable when the story ended and they tried to keep the story going. You know, it became unsalvageable in 2019 when fucking Iron Man died and the story ended.
Yeah, that should have been the end of the arc. They should have at least made an attempt to start a secondary arc instead of 37 secondary arcs.
Yeah, and if you wanted to resurrect it and restart it at some point, you needed to give it a solid 5 years, sure. Minimum. No theatrical releases, no fucking bullshit Disney Plus shows, because that hasn't helped either.
Right this second, if you had to make a decision right now, do you keep Marvel or Star Wars?
Keep Star Wars, dump Marvel.
Keep Star Wars, dump Marvel.
Yeah, I know there's arguments to be made both ways, but in terms of first inclination, I would say keep Star Wars, dump Marvel. What would you say?
Keep Star Wars, dump Marvel, and here's why. Marvel has run its Disney course. As you said, the story has already ended, and their attempt to start a second arc has not been very successful. Their best showing, in my opinion, was this most recent season of Andor and Skeleton Crew, which Skeleton Crew was released with zero hype, not a single freaking commercial, and I never even came across a trailer for it until I happened to flip over and be like, what's this? And then I watched the whole thing and was like, Goonies! I love Goonies! It's good enough for me, man. I'm not hard to please. I just don't want too much of that BS in my face too hard, That's all. If you can just tell the story. And I think that Skeleton Crew, while it did have its moments, told a story. And while that story was Goonies, whatever. I don't care. Fine, whatever. I watched it. Andor, on the other hand, actually has a chance of some sort of redemption taking place in the future, which is something you don't have with Marvel. Every single Marvel property they have touched since Iron Man died has flopped religiously.
Yep, and it keeps flopping harder and harder and harder. And the conundrum that you're going to come up against with this next Avengers movie that they're attempting to make, I don't know if you saw the report this week, but I read a report that says there's basically 50 lead actors in this thing, so it's basically everybody who's ever been a lead actor in any MCU project, and they are getting paid an average of $20 million a piece. So you are almost painting yourself into a corner right off the bat economically, where the picture basically has to be the top grossing picture of all time, or it will lose money. I mean that's that kind of margins and expenses that we're dealing with here now.
And that's another reason why I suggest you keep Star Wars and dump Marvel. Marvel has so much stake invested in the various actors and actresses that are playing the roles that it would be hard to offload a new character in a new slot of Black Widow. You're going to play hell trying to replace Black Widow. You're going to play hell trying to replace Tony Stark. You're not. I mean, Bruce Banner's been changed a dozen times. People are kind of used to the swaps, and that's fine. The Hulk doesn't have to look like anything but the Hulk when he's green, and that's fine. As far as I'm concerned, he could look like Jim Eagle, and it'd be fine.
And Jim Eagle is a handsome fellow.
But you're not going to recast Tony Stark as anyone less of an actor than Robert Downey Jr. and get away with it, which means you're still stuck with the high budget, regardless of how you cut it. With Star Wars, they have the ability of basing brand new characters off of Legends material. They have 25 years of Legends material behind them that was written by some of the greatest authors in science fiction history, and they can totally crib that out without having to pay a dime.
And another reason I would be so inclined as far as keep Star Wars, dump Marvel, is because Star Wars has been a viable cinematic property for quite a bit longer than Marvel has. Even though, you know, the tale of the tape says Marvel has had the more individually successful pictures, I still think Star Wars has to be the more valuable brand, just because it's got a half-century long footprint, where Marvel really only becomes a viable movie studio in around 2010, around Iron Man 2,
2012.
Yeah, somewhere in there. I think it was really Captain America: Winter Soldier was the point at which the thing gained critical mass and became viable. I don't know if there's any reasoning behind why I say that. It just kind of feels that way.
All right, can we all agree that the second Iron Man film was pretty much trash?
It was pretty much trash.
Okay, it was pretty much trash. All right. So that being said, when you watch it in a series, you kind of have to annex out the second Iron Man movie. But having Iron Man be the first movie, but Captain America being the first Avenger and presenting it that way was absolute genius. The way they did it by doing separate movies for the individuals, if they could have carried that philosophy forward, they could have done this for the next 20 years and nobody would have cared.
Oh yeah, and they did so well at building up to that crescendo. Even though some of the movies were not good, and some you might even say they sucked, but they built up to that crescendo that they reached in 2019, where they managed to pop the most profitable box office picture of all time, and now they crested that wave, and now they are all the way back down to where the fourth Captain America, the Captain Falcon picture, if you want to call it a Captain America picture, but the fourth picture in that series basically did the exact same number that Captain America: The First Avenger did back in 2011. And you know, there's no way you can put lipstick to make that pig look good, dude.
Exactly, and did it with like the original Captain America film had, you know, your basic, you know, early Marvel Disney hype. It was decent, but no one had seen Captain America done well, and they were all hoping, and they got exactly that. Boom.
Yeah. Every attempt previous to that of doing live action Captain America was completely embarrassing and ridiculous.
I mean, even some of
the guy with the clear shield on the motorcycle back in the 70s. And God,
that was one of my favorites, dude. I love that motorcycle. Shut up, dude. Stop.
Yeah, plexiglass shield, and then you had they did that very low budget Captain America picture in 1990. I want to say, I think it was an Italian production or something like that. But you know, in terms of a so good it's bad, it's probably worth checking out if you're smoking a whole bunch of weed. But yeah, it's only. Look at it. But that's where it was commonly assumed, and perhaps not unreasonably, that you just couldn't do a good live action Captain America picture. And what a stroke of genius it was getting Joe Johnson to do that first bit. I think Captain America: The First Avenger is an underrated picture in general, and I think it's also underappreciated for how crucially important it was in developing the canon of the MCU, because it's such a great movie that succeeds in being exactly what it's trying to be, which is basically a series of comic book panels blown up to the big screen. Yep. And in terms of the visual aesthetic and costume design and set design, it does all of that stuff so well, and I think it doesn't get enough credit for how good it is.
I have a controversial opinion on Black Panther, the first movie, not the second one. The second one was a bald-faced cash grab, and that's all it was. But the first movie...
You mean you're not accepting a noodle-armed 78-pound woman as Black Panther? Is that what you're telling me, you racist misogynist? Sorry.
No, I'm telling you that it paid off, and they made money. That's what I'm saying. But the first Black Panther film, and a lot of people had hate for this film, and still do, but I think it might go down in history as one of the better Marvel films in the distant future. Once all the dust settles and all the money crashes out around it. And allow me to explain why. Black Panther stayed more true to the spirit of the comic Black Panther than any of the other Marvel adventurers, pound for pound, right? Villain or a hero. Black Panther takes every single comic book trope in the comics and flips them on their head. He's not a hero, he's an anti-hero. He's not from around here, he's just protecting the general good of citizenry everywhere, not any particular neighborhood. He doesn't rep his set except for back in Wakanda, right? Otherwise, he's just this dude who kicks people's asses who are being assholes, and that's it. until there's some world shattering thing that comes to his attention, he doesn't break out any toys more than Batman does. But when they made a movie of him, if you try to invert the comic book tropes in a movie, it turns into basically trash. It can't be done directly. And so what they did instead is they inverted all of the classic movie tropes, including a double handful of the Marvel movie tropes that had already been established up to that point, where you end up having all the women stance up and get ready to fight, and then the fight never actually comes to them. Ends up being taken out by the Hulk or Thor or somebody else. This whole idea of like casual misogyny where all the male superheroes are taking the brunt of the fight while the females are running around trying to get in this. It's hilarious. It is comic genius from the very beginning to the very final scene. It is beautiful. And I'll take
our white supporting characters all have to be bumbling buffoons because obviously.
I mean, think about it. The one token white guy died protecting Wakanda.
It's true. And they took him back across their closed border to get medical treatment because that's the kind of guys they are.
I'm just saying, dude, like it's not going to be, and I have another controversial opinion when it comes to movies and theater. Shia LaBeouf might be a comedic genius and definitely an artistic genius.
I'm glad you brought him up because you know what picture he did that I watched recently that I actually thought was pretty good, and I think his performance was actually kind of awesome. The more I thought about it, I don't even remember the name of it, but he plays Padre Pio. You remember the old the monk with the stigmata and all that stuff. It seems like such a strange casting choice. But I watched the picture just for the hell of it, and I thought it was a pretty brilliant performance on his part, which kind of surprised me because I just think of him as mostly a political psycho, which some actors, that's all they want to be seen as. And I understand that he's developed a reputation of being pretty difficult to work with, and so he doesn't get a whole lot of scripts coming his way lately. But this is certainly a challenging role for him to have taken on, and I thought he did really kind of amazingly, surprisingly well with it.
He is wrongly reported as being a method actor when in reality he is an IRL artist. He's always on, and that's why he is difficult to work with. Is you're not working with Shia LaBeouf, you're working with his current artistic endeavor.
Yeah, I guess the name of the movie is actually just Padre Pio.
So I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, I did watch it, and I thought it was pretty solid. And I know that the term method acting gets thrown around entirely too much, but it is that kind of a performance where you can tell that the actor really committed to immersing himself in everything he could immerse himself in as far as the historical figure that he was portraying. And I thought he did a pretty damned impressive job with it.
Okay, cool. I'll have to check that one out. I found a really stupid, allegedly early Diddy List release. You want to check it out?
Definitely. Everybody loves a Diddy List. Does anybody have any idea who Pauly Shore is today?
No, not Pauly. Anybody but Pauly, man.
It actually took me a minute to realize it was Pauly Shore, and I think my kids would not believe me if I tried to explain how famous that guy once was, just for doing a funny voice on MTV.
Dude, the Biodome bit, Encino Man made that man. Without Encino Man.
Weasel. I'm the Weasel, bro, and I do funny stuff with my hands, and I'm the Weasel, and I do weaselly stuff.
Not you, anybody but you. I thought it was safe.
It's me. It's MTV video time. The Wheeze coming at ya. I'm probably wearing some funny thing on my head because I'm the Wheeze. You don't know what the Wheeze are gonna do.
Wow, that's starting to get a little painful, bro. The cringe is actually physically striking me. And what a way to advertise for drugs, too, man. Like, Jesus. Whew, bro.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure he was totally straight edge. No chemical assistance with that act. None at all, God damn it.
But yeah, no, I figured y'all appreciate that. I stumbled across that earlier today, and the fact that it had the list of people involved with it that were, I was like,
yes, I am the Walrus and he is the Weasel. Somebody should do a Pauly Shore version of I Am the Walrus. Maybe I should do it.
Don't tempt me, bro.
I am the Eggman. I am the Eggman. I am the Weasel, brah. I think when I was young, I could do a pretty solid Pauly Shore impression. But it's back when you heard the guy's voice every day, it was easier to do. But it's been so many years that I don't think it's in very good shape. But if you gave me a couple days to brush up, I bet I could kick its ass up one side of the country and down the other. But I ain't here to brag. Can I come at you with something fairly esoteric that I warned you about when we were backstage?
Sure, hit me.
Just a little astronomy / ancient anthropology thing. Take it for what it's worth and tell me how stupid I am afterward. I'm watching a video with my dad earlier today about a young man who's climbing the tallest mountain in the Americas. I can't remember the name of it. Seems like I should know the name. Don't know the name. But anyway, it's in the Andes, obviously, right on the border of Chile and Argentina. So I pull out the internet machine and I start reading some stuff about the mountain and the area. And I'm acquainted with the area already somewhat because it's in the vicinity of the Atacama Desert, which we have a lot of astronomical observatories down in that area because it's such a great place to look at the stars and see the southern sky. Many people don't realize that, if you've lived your whole life above the equator, you've only ever seen the northern sky. If you've lived your whole life below the equator, you've only ever seen the southern sky. And the thing that got me thinking was, think about how much that affects the development of our religions. Back in ancient history, when the people looking up at the northern sky see different things, they see different constellations, and so they invent different myths that become the starting points of their religion. Meanwhile, if you're down in South America, if you're on the Andes Plateau, if you're in the Atacama Desert, where that mountain is, that's the best place in the world to look at the sky. You can just look up and see the freaking Milky Way blazing right across the center of the sky all night long. I couldn't ever go and sleep at night if I had that to look at. The point being, coincidentally, down in that same area, the Andes Plateau, Chile, Peru, little bit of Argentina, that is also the place where we have the Nazca lines. And a lot of, pretty much all of the large ancient petroglyphs that we're aware of and that we're still discovering are in those high desert South America mountain areas. So, and I think it's a fascinating thing to think about, that just what you see when you look up in the sky might be the determining factor in all of your society's religious traditions and spiritual myths and creation stories, and all that stuff is determined by that. And because obviously it is. And how fascinating is that? Now go ahead and tell me I'm completely off base on the whole thing.
The only real thing that I would bring up here is the Atacama is on top of a plateau, and that mountain is on top of that plateau as well. Right. That plateau is significantly higher than most of your other civilizations on Earth that aren't in like freaking Tibet or the Himalayas or something.
Yeah. The point being, those are those of all the ancient peoples on the Earth, they are the ones with the best view of the cosmos. And so and as a conclusion, you can almost say that the people who are the closest to the cosmos are the people who are most concerned with trying to communicate with it, in the construction of your Nazca lines and your giant petroglyphs. And I think that's awesome. And it's probably not a coincidence. People who can see the sky less well probably have less of a desire to communicate with whoever or whatever is up there, right?
The one caveat I wanted to put on this is specifically the Egyptians were one of the very few ancient societies that actually had access to things both north and south of the equator. And their cosmology reflects that to an extent. They largely had the cosmology of something about a dome, something about a sphere, and something about an egg. They didn't believe the Earth was round, but they also didn't believe like space was space. So
yeah, and you get, I think most people don't realize that you get a pretty profoundly different view of the night sky when you're on the equator than you do when you're on the Tropic of Cancer or the Tropic of Capricorn. I mean, those are three different skies you're looking at. Different sets of constellations, and everything that proceeds from that.
No, you're right. And one of my this is going to get kind of tinfoil hatty, but stick with me. Are you familiar with the Piri-Reis map?
It sounds familiar.
All right, so this is the map that supposedly shows aspects of South America and Antarctica.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
Okay, so the story behind the Piri-Reis map actually carries a little bit of lore with it. It was copied from from other groups of maps that were supposedly copied from some Indian navigators that were supposedly copied from a collection of maps in New Delhi. Now, that collection of maps is completely gone. There's no reference to it whatsoever. And as far as the other source maps of the Piri-Reis map, we have virtually nothing of it, with the exception of a couple of the really early, or actually probably copies of copies, to be honest, right? But
yeah, it's the the cartographic equivalent of the Q document from biblical scholarship. You know, the unknown prior text that we don't know what the hell it was or what the hell it said. We can infer what it said from the things that were based on it, but it's still a big damn mystery.
Right. So there's a whole bunch of like really weird tinfoil hat stories associated with this type of stuff. But there's one thing we can actually kind of, and yes, it does require a little bit of faith, but it's kind of a faith in people being people and not faith in some greater anything taking place. Just that people see things that are important and recognize them as important and save them. And the concept of the navigator being a kind of like the old, what was it? The mariner, the great mariner, the old ancient mariner, that type of concept that some people take it upon themselves to map coastlines. They just do it, right? When you're talking about compiling hundreds of maps across possibly thousands of years and putting it into a reasonable consideration of reality, the idea that you would accidentally happen to hit on the coastline of Australia, no, I mean the coastline of Antarctica without the ice is really weird. And so next week, I'm going to be bringing in some stuff on the Silurian hypothesis and the possible existence of pre-Ice Age civilizations and how a group might have carried myths from that civilization to our current iteration of human civilization. I'm not saying they went industrial, possibly not even agricultural revolution at all, but maybe we'll see.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm glad I find it encouraging that whole conversation is, I think, starting to leave the realm of taboo and enter the realm where it's okay to have polite discussion about it without somebody trying to slap a tinfoil hat on you, because it still is very much an open question that there might have been an advanced civilization, you know, before any of the civilizations that we know about, that was 15 or 20,000 years ago, that we haven't discovered any evidence of yet. But we have a whole series of reasons to infer why that might be true, and there's no reason why we shouldn't investigate the question. It's not like civilization probably just popped up with one day with the Sumerians. I mean, that would be pretty highly improbable. These
Sure.
guys got the stuff from somewhere, so the somewhere has to be something, correct?
And also, there are a couple of myths that are shared across every single early civilization we can
Exactly. The commonality of flood myths, most prominently. Yep.
Yeah, specifically that and dragons, things flying in the sky. There's a double handful of that go across the full spectrum. One of the weird ones is the association of fish people, but we'll get into that next week. Yes, we are talking Younger Dryas era, perhaps even pre-Younger Dryas era. You have to understand, the Clovis people are pre-Younger Dryas. So there were definitely people in the Americas pre-Younger Dryas. There's really no argument about that anymore. So there's no reason why there couldn't have been some level of civilization, even if it was specifically light on the land. But we'll get into that next week. I'm looking this one for a minute.
But do you know what the best part of that is? That those kids think they are iconoclasts. They don't realize they are conformists, all wearing the same uniform. But they are, and they have no idea.
Sort of a rage for the machine kind of mentality. We're going to be the resistance.
Yes. Oh God, what a fantastic way of putting it. I wish I could give you a high five. I'm giving you an internet high five right now.
Yes, sir. I mean, that's exactly what it is. When your frontman refuses to host a show that's already sold out because there was a few people in the crowd not wearing masks, you're raging for the machine, bro.
You are raging for the machine, indeed. You are absolutely right, my friend.
All right, a little bit of Sasquatch lore for you. When I grew up with a guy who worshipped the red, white, and black of the University of Georgia. This guy came out of his mother's womb with the intent of being a Georgia coach. Today is a Georgia
Bulldog
coach.
pride, baby.
Bulldog pride. Hunker down, boys. What I'm getting at is this. When we were young fellows and watching football together and stuff, and I hate football. I've always hated football. But I did watch the Dogs because he kind of hooked me in real early on, and I got this.
That's DAWGS, Dogs.
Dogs. So he noticed one day that every single Dogs game that I watched, they would lose. And he made me promise to never, ever, 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 under any circumstances, watch the Georgia-Florida game ever again.
Ever.
Ever again. Like, he offered to pay me. We were roommates. He was in college. He was like, I'll make you a deal. Because I don't remember exactly what year it was that we lost like 3 years in a row or some crap, and they were cooking us up real good. And he just like comes over to me, he's like, "Dude, stop watching the games." It's like, oh. And I did too. I haven't seen a Georgia football game in 10 years, 12 years.
I just wanted to briefly say that I do have a deep and abiding interest in Katy Perry being sent to space. I just don't know why you would send Katy Perry to space and have her leave her shirt on, is all I'm saying.
No, I mean, I get that. Sure. You're right. You're not wrong. Of course, there should be some OnlyFans content. But my problem is they brought her back. They had a perfectly good opportunity to just leave her ass out there with a whole bunch of other feminists.
or go the Superman 4 route and just launch her into the sun with all the nuclear weapons.
Nah, dude, you turned the sun rainbow colored. I'm not down for that shit.
The sun turns into a big pair of fiery boobs. I can too. I've been saying that for months now.
I've been saying for about a year and a half now, since about 6 months after we started doing the show together, that the Onion the reason the Onion went under is because reality purchased their writers.
Yeah, I honestly am genuinely taken aback with surprise that it hasn't happened yet.
We are evil and should be destroyed from the face of the earth. Apparently, scientists have made guinea pigs listen to Adele for 7 days straight. And if anything, that's how evil we are, that would be it. Now, listen, and this goes for anywhere you happen to end up in a grave. If you ever end up in an open grave for any reason whatsoever, you might want to rethink your life choices. It is possible that you have a job with the state or the county and your job is to dig the grave, in which case it might be acceptable. Under virtually any other circumstance, you have made some terrible decisions.
Oh, that's good. That's fantastic. Look at that. Look at that.
Alcatraz inmate number 1.
Like that would have been science fiction 5 years ago. Just that picture existing back in a world where there was no Black George Washington.
When a Clinton ends up in Alcatraz, we'll have a second filming of The Rock.
Welcome to The Rock, boys. I think we need to talk about Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama is not doing well. She seems to be dialing up her passive-aggressive knob a couple notches every day. She really doesn't like being married to her husband. I mean,
wasn't there something about Jennifer Aniston and all of that? I mean, can you blame him, her, or either one of them?
And I don't know, maybe some of it arises from the fact that nobody wants to watch her dumb, stupid podcasts, and everybody wants to be a podcaster now. Even people who were the president's wife want to be podcasters now. Why does everybody want to be a podcaster? Podcasters are fucking stupid. I mean, look at us. Do you want to live this life? Of course you don't.
I know what it is. I know exactly what it is. The left has no rudder. They are currently unled, unbound, unfocused. They're just reeing into the night and no one is listening. We don't care. We're laughing our asses off. It's hilarious to me how broken some of these people are. And I knew it was completely lost when someone approached me the other day. He was a young man. I've known him for several years. He recently turned 18. He looked at me and he said, "You know, Sasquatch, when I'm a man, I'm going to be a Democrat." And I said, "Now, hold on, sir. You're going to have to pick one or the other. You're not going to be able to choose like that." So
well played.
Yeah. No, he didn't get it at the time.
Poor kid. Just right.
Yeah. After thinking on it, which means he's fairly based. He'll never make a Democrat.
Yeah, probably not. You have to be really, really credulous and willing to accept a lot of stuff in order to live that life.
But no, see, there's one thing, and I've heard that a lot from a lot of different podcasters who are more based than your average, chemistry student. The lack of leadership is part of what is drawing in some of the more chaotic and less functional members of our youth. It feels like a rebellion to them because there's no leader, and it could be anybody. Anybody could pop out front in the next couple of years, and poof, you'll have a
Oh yeah, I mean, so somebody we've never heard of, just like nobody in 1990 had ever heard of Bill Clinton, and a couple of years later, that dude's the fucking president. All it takes is the right set of circumstances,
and that's where they're at. If there's going to be a huge cultural, maintenance, because it wouldn't be a shift, it would be a centering, a recentering. If that's which I believe,
yes, very much so.
Was Donald Trump was a recentering. Donald Trump firmly recentered the Overton window from where it was in the 90s to liberal mid-90s politics is now considered conservative. So
yes, or extreme far right even.
Yes, that was a huge recentering of the Overton window that has taken place. And I believe that another one could take place with whoever comes out in lead of the Democrat Party in the next couple of years. I think that'd be very interesting to see in the future, and I can't wait.
I've actually been thinking a lot about Ross Perot lately and just how pivotal that 92 election was. Because, as we know, Bill Clinton never becomes the president if the conservatives don't split that vote between George Bush and Ross Perot. And Perot, I think, had a pretty good chance to be the president. I wish I could still understand why he dropped out and then dropped back in, but I think it also says a lot that he dropped back out and dropped back in right at the end and still pulled 20%. And that was the greatest opportunity we had to smash the whole duocracy, and we didn't follow through. And I want to have a better understanding of why that happened, so I think I'm going to do a video about it this week.
Okay, before you do that video, let me ask you one question. Who was operating the CIA at that time? And we'll move on. So, back to the memes.
If you gave me 90 more seconds, I probably would know the answer, but that doesn't make good television.
Yeah, no, it's fine. You're not supposed to know. My point is that it had recently transferred out of the hands of Georgie Porgy, right? So you were largely still dealing with the I guess you'd call him Republican, semi-conservative. I don't know, dude. I don't think anybody who's director of the CIA can be a Republican. I just don't believe it.
And we also, of course, had a almost a carbon copy of the same thing back in 1912, but that election wound up being far more damaging. I mean, we are still dealing with the bad consequences of that election right up until the present day. Our great-great-great-grandchildren will still be dealing with the consequences of the 1912 election. The point being, Woodrow Wilson never becomes the president unless Theodore Roosevelt runs third party, because he decides that William Howard Taft has done such an intolerably bad job that he has to come in and replace and it was a great American, a great man, did very few things wrong in his life. That was the worst one. In doing that thing, in running against Taft instead of supporting him, he gave us 2 terms of Woodrow Wilson and all the calamities that accompanied it. And I think there is not a sufficient enough public understanding of what a disastrous inflection point that was in American history. Now, when we say they were attacked with a lightsaber, what actual kind of object are we talking about there?
I believe it is one of those plastic doohickeys that you collapses down in itself with a flashlight in it, that type of thing.
Right. That's probably the natural assumption. But I mean, do a better job as a news reporter than just telling me that someone got attacked with a fictional object.
I get what you're saying, but at the same time, I mean, this definitely has the clickbait that I was looking for.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes I fail at thinking like a clickbaiter. I will give you that.
Deputies described the lightsaber as a higher quality device that was 3.5 feet long, made of metal and thick plastic.
3.5 feet.
That is a lightsaber.
Motherfucker of a lightsaber, dude. That's like the Kylo Ren model.
No, that's maybe that's the lightsabers you build at Disney when you
it's
go.
Like a lightsaber pole vault. I mean, can you imagine how much your chest would swell with pride as a sworn police officer driving around in a transgender police car? I mean,
well, I don't know if the car is transgender, but it definitely represents transgenders. So there's that.
I often wonder the same thing about the London cops. Like they make them drive around in these cars that look like floats from a gay pride parade. Like, is that supposed to strike fear into the hearts of criminals?
Because I want to be perfectly clear, everyone. You have to remember the carbon they want to reduce is you. Capitalism is immoral because you have to work or you starve. Literally, Lenin, he who does not work shall not eat.
Oh, if only we had AOC here to explain this one to us.
I have showed you the campaign, the AI campaign thing, right?
Yeah, we did a whole episode about it last week.
Good, because it turned out I hadn't showed Sam, but he got downright peeved with me, and I started worrying about whether or not I'd showed you.
Oh yeah, it's on the highlight reel and everything.
Lovely.
A bunch of shorts about it. Yeah, it's saturated.
It's beautiful, bud. Hold on, sir. Hold on. You interviewed a man named Tom Kaw about some fucking pigeons.
I was just gonna. That seems a little too perfect, frankly.
This is ChatGPT. This is AI.
Yeah, I'm not buying that one for a moment.
Not a bit. Well, the CEOs typically are the people that pull the levers of power within the actual industry in question. And if they're capable of drawing off a higher salary, even if they're using a golden parachute clause, do you blame them?
Yeah, I don't have any problem with CEOs making a lot of money. It's just not an aspect of class warfare that interests me in the slightest. People should get paid whatever they can get paid, whether it's an incompetent woke CEO or an incompetent woke news anchor. If you can get someone to pay an impossibly unconscionable amount of money for the thing you do that should be completely worthless, more power to you. Free country and all that.
Did you hear about some of the restrictions being lifted on nuclear power plants?
I just saw the headline, didn't read the article. Fill me in.
All right. I didn't read all of the article. I actually stashed it somewhere, but I can't.
It's a good thing to talk about, though. I'm glad you brought it up.
We only got 3 minutes, but we can make this happen. All right. So basically,
Yep.
The reason we haven't built any type of nuclear power plants since 72 or whatever it was, 71, is because I can't remember which president, but one of them signed a bill that made it illegal to transport nuclear material over the highway system, which pretty much made it impossible.
That was Jimmy Carter thing.
Right. So, which pretty much made it impossible to transport nuclear fuel unless you're the military, right? And so that completely curtailed energy research and production from for years since then.
Oh yeah, and then additionally, they made it impossible for us to build the Yucca Mountain repository where we were going to dump all of the spent fuel rods. So that increases the difficulty also.
We've had 25 years since the last time we've actually looked into the production of nuclear power on a mass scale, and that 25 years has largely been picking apart the mistakes that were made in previous designs and updating those designs to safer formats. But not only that, there have been further design increases in what are referred to as daughter element reactors, which is where you take the spent fuel rods from reactor 2 in Savannah and you use it in a reactor in Arizona to do the next tear down of neutron exchange or whatever.
Yeah, because it's still got enough left in it to be useful for that. So of course you're going to use it again. Why wouldn't you?
Well, not only that, once you do this a few times, in which the technology isn't 100% there yet, but it's not 100% there yet because we haven't been capable of doing the testing that's necessary to get us there.
Yeah, because we skipped that whole 25 years of innovation for no damn good reason.
So with the ability of being able to transfer some of these spent fuels to new testing sites, we should, at least theoretically, in the next year or two, start having nuclear plants coming online utilizing some of the old spent fuel rods from previous designs, reducing their radioactivity and their level of danger to future humanity, and creating power at the same time. We are solving a problem with a problem.
Everybody wins.
Everybody wins. We export power, your power bill goes down, or maybe not because they're greedy bastards, but whatever. It's still better for the planet and the future and is brilliant. It is the only source of green power that actually exists on Earth. Otherwise, you're transferring Earth's power itself, which it needs to maintain itself, into power. Solar power
only
farms,
zero emission power source that is known to science.
The solar power farms take up so much space of areas that usually have grass or trees or whatever else you'd have on it. And if it's not in an area with grass and trees, it's too dusty to actually take beneficial effect of its position in the sun. Nature itself is fighting against this concept. It's not just me, bro. Nuclear is the only actual answer for power.